Hey guys, it's Katie here with Life in the Mundane, and a lot of you guys have been asking about how we got started in our homeschool journey and how we decided to start homeschooling. So I wanted to come take a little bit of time to talk to you guys about sort of how we got there, and then next week I'm going to touch on our reasons, our specific reasons for homeschooling. We kind of have 10 reasons that we've laid out that I've referred to in other videos. 10 reasons that we choose to homeschool, that we did choose and we're still choosing to homeschool. And then on the third week, I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit more about if you are thinking about homeschooling, what kind of some of the first steps are. So if you're looking to start now, what you can do. So let's get started. So first of all, I have to say that my husband and I talked about this before we even got married. He had grown up his entire life being homeschooled, and I was homeschooled for most of my education. I spent kindergarten through second grade in a private school, and ninth and part of 10th in a private school as well. But the rest of the time I was homeschooled, and we both had very positive experiences. So we had talked and communicated ahead of time that that was the expectation. That's what we wanted to do for our kids for various reasons. And that was the plan. And so we got married, and within the next year we had our first child. And before he was even born, when I was pregnant with him, we attended our first homeschool conference. How old was our child? And we're like, well, he hasn't been born yet. And that's just kind of my personality. I'm a planner. I love to get as much information as I can, and I knew I wasn't going to be starting school until obviously kindergarten, but I was just like, that gives me 5 or 6 years to start planning and get an idea of what my style is and what are my options out there and whatnot. So I know I'm crazy like that. But anyways, we were attending this homeschool conference, and I was so excited. And the truth is that all of your teaching at home is part of homeschooling. So when you're reading books with your kids at bedtime, when you are cooking dinner together, and when you're doing any of that, when you're teaching them about the Word of God, it is all part of homeschooling. And it's not the set time from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. of formal, when that formal education is happening. That's not just homeschooling. It's all of your life at home that's homeschooling. But I didn't really have that perspective at that time. So I continued on, and we ended on with this goal of homeschooling. Was very sure we were going to do that, and baby number 2 came along just a year later. Baby number 3 came along just a year after that, and I had started doing all these fun preschool activities. Busy bags, lesson plans for pre-K, you name it. I had a whole schoolroom set up, and it was insane. But I was all bound for this track. And then baby number 4 came just 1 year after that, and when she came, we found out at 4 months old that she had a genetic disorder. She has 22q 11.2 deletion syndrome. If you are a fellow 22q mom, give me a shout out below. I'd love to connect with you. But it's this genetic disorder that can affect up to 180 different symptoms within your body. So my little baby girl, little did I know, had a lot of issues. So over the next year or more of life, while I had a 3 to 1 year old and a newborn, I was entering this whole new world of medical special needs. My daughter now is 6 years old. By the grace of God, she's still with us and healthy, which is amazing, but she's had 16 surgeries in 6 years. She was hospitalized then, not now, but back then she was hospitalized usually about once a month, once every 6 weeks, for anywhere from 2 to 7 days. She was having to go to a lot of different therapies. So we were doing, between my oldest son, who needed some speech therapy and occupational therapy, and her, we were doing 8 to 10 doctor's appointments and therapy appointments a week, every single week, year round. So it was just a lot. We were overwhelmed, to say the least. And I started to fall into a depression. Not over my daughter's health issues at all. I actually was happy to have answers and a direction. She is fearfully and wonderfully made, and I am so thankful to have her. But it was just the overwhelming burden of holding all of this on my shoulders, of feeling like I needed to educate my kids and keep my house and take care of all these medical needs, and managing all of my expectations on myself as well as other people's expectations of me was just too much. So I started to fall into a lot of severe anxiety, started having panic attacks on a regular basis, and it just was not a pretty time in my life. But one night after a severe panic attack, my husband looked over at me and he said, "Katie, I don't think we should homeschool." And I just looked at him with this, I'm sure it was just this crazy stare. But I was just overwhelmed at what he was saying. And I was like, "What do you mean a homeschool? We've been planning for this for years. We've been planning for this our entire marriage, and you're all of a sudden changing the plan." And he was like, "You know what?" He's like, "You don't need to do it. We need to put them in school. I think that's what's better for them and what's better for you right now." And it took a lot of tears and a lot of prayer and a lot of submission, but I followed my husband's plan. We put the kids in school, and it was probably one of the best things we ever did. We put them in a local private school, and it was a good decision for me. I needed that time to be able to, over that next 2 years, I spent a lot of time being able to work on my physical health and mental health, working on all of those things, working on my daughter's health issues, being able to focus on those, because those first 2 years were definitely the most intense. They've petered off quite a bit now. And really being able to focus on my family, bringing us back together, and closeness and whatnot. But after 2 years in the private school, I was doing a lot better, and completely off any kind of medication. My daughter's health was definitely on the mend. We were still doing therapy appointments, still doing surgeries, but everything was just a lot more manageable. I think it had become the new normal. And so there were just a lot of circumstances that had changed at that point. And I really had thought that we weren't going to get a homeschool again. And then my husband and I were talking about it, and we were like, "You know what? I think that it's the time and place that we need to bring them back home." So we did. We brought them back home to homeschool. It's been 3 years now, and it's been a wonderful 3 years. I absolutely love it. It's everything I hoped and dreamed it would be. But I'm also really glad that I didn't do it for those 2 years. And I think part of that is God taught me a lot during that time. He taught me a dependence on Him, because I couldn't do it as much as I was trying to pull it together and meet everybody's, and especially my own expectations on myself. I couldn't pull it together to do that. But I also think that it was a good time. It was a good time for me to just refocus and not idolize homeschooling. I had told myself that, this is my expectation of myself. This is what a good mom would do. This is what my mom did for me. I want to give it to my kids. And I kind of had this picture perfect, idealistic thought about homeschooling. And really, I realized that I needed to actually focus more on what God's will was for my kids and their education, and what was best for our family and our individual children. So we kind of made a commitment to bring them back home, but we made a commitment that we would take it by a year basis. So while I would love to homeschool all of my kids throughout their entire education, my husband and I agreed that we were going to pray for every year and just see, is that the right decision for that child, for each and every child for that year. And we know that in the future we may end up sending some back. We may send them all back. I don't know. But we just take it day by day, step by step. Right now, it's been very clear that this is what God's called us to do. I will also say that my oldest son had some learning difficulties, and it just seemed like in the classroom setting he wasn't keeping up. He was really, really struggling. So when we brought him home, we started seeing, when we could work one-on-one with him, we were seeing strive. I mean, it was just crazy to see the jump in what he could do. And we're continuing to see that with all of our kids as they really thrive with that one-on-one attention and being able to tailor their education to them. So I will definitely get into more of why we're homeschooling specifically, some of the benefits that I love about homeschooling, why we continue to homeschool next week. But I just wanted to come on here and share with you guys my story to encourage you mamas who are making that decision, that it is not an easy or a light decision, that it takes a lot of prayer and a lot of calling. Don't be discouraged if God's answer is no right now, that you can't do that, and that it's a no. It could be a no, never, that's just not best. It could be a no, not yet. Or you could be in school, and that could be perfectly fine for your family. So I just want to say you're not alone. You're not alone in those things that you're going through, and life might be too much right now, and that's okay. It's not that everyone's called to homeschool. I don't believe that. But I do believe that we're all called to teach our kids in our home, that we're called to be a primary influence. It's a little bit easier to be a primary influence as a homeschool parent because we're with them longer. But definitely to all the moms out there who work outside of the home, or whose kids go to school, or both, it's still, God's called us to be a primary influence in our kids and to train them up in the way they should go. And I think it's just important to take those opportunities at home to really, really work with them, to train them up in those things that they need to get. We can't depend, obviously, on the schools, even Christian schools, to teach our kids about God's word and the important things in life. Yes, they can do the reading and the writing and the arithmetic, which is fantastic, but it's up to us to train them in that area. And so don't take that lightly, and press on. I know it's hard. It's super hard, and there's so many obstacles Satan wants to get in our way, but just keep pressing on, and take courage that you know that as long as you're being faithful in what God's called you to do, the results are left up to him, and he will take care of the rest. So I hope that is an encouragement to you guys. If you want to reach out, if there's anything I can pray for you about, let me know in the comments. If you're struggling with the decision to homeschool, I'd love to talk to you more. And I hope you'll join me next week to talk about the 10 benefits of homeschooling, at least for our family. And if you can, I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel. If it's been helpful, please share. I post videos every Wednesday and Saturday, and on making the most of little moments in parenting, in homeschooling, in home management, and all of life. And I hope you guys have a great night. Bye.